I stood in that cramped donation center on Marshall Avenue, my stomach aching from 4 days of living on instant noodles, when the technician's expression shifted from routine to shock. "Mr. Harrison," she stammered, stepping back from her computer screen. "I need to get the medical supervisor." Immediately, that single moment fractured my life into two distinct chapters, before I understood what coursed through my veins and everything that came after. The overhead lights hummed relentlessly, casting harsh shadows that made the worn furniture look even cheaper. "My name is Marcus Harrison, and 7 months ago, I owned a construction company valued at $7.5 million. I managed teams across 4 states, secured municipal contracts, and had a wife who enjoyed boasting to her yoga friends about our lake house in the mountains. But standing there in that donation clinic, watching a young technician named Sarah examine my blood sample like she'd uncovered something impossible, I was just another desperate, middle-aged man trying to scrape together $60. "Sir, please remain seated," Sarah said, her hands visibly shaking as she reached for the phone. She'd been nothing but professional since I'd walked in, embarrassed and hollow, completing forms that asked humiliating questions like, "When did you last have a complete meal?" I'd written 2 days instead of the truthful 5. "Is there something wrong? Am I sick?" My voice cracked because suddenly I was imagining tumors, blood disorders, all the ways your body can turn against you when you've already lost everything else. "No, Mr. Harrison, you're not sick," Sarah replied, already dialing with fumbling fingers. "It's just that your blood is." She caught herself, glanced at me nervously, then spoke rapidly into the receiver. "Dr. Mitchell, you need to come to Station 4 right away." "Yes, immediately. I have a donor with Rh-null blood." I didn't understand what Rh-null meant, but the reverence in her voice, like she'd discovered buried treasure in a plastic bag, made my chest constrict. Around us, other donors scrolled through phones or watched the wall-mounted television playing some morning show. None of them realized that the biggest failure in the room was about to learn he'd been carrying liquid gold for 49 years. "Sarah, what's Rh-null?" I asked, but she was already hanging up, already preparing a second collection kit with movements that had transformed from mechanical to sacred. "Mr. Harrison, Rh-null blood is the rarest blood type on Earth. Only about 50 people worldwide have been documented with it. Your blood can save individuals who would die without it, people with no other matches, no other options. 50 people out of 8 billion. I stared at my arm, where the needle rested taped against my skin, at the thin tube drawing crimson blood into a medical bag, trying to comprehend how Marcus Harrison, the man whose wife had thrown her wedding ring at his feet 3 weeks ago, could suddenly be one of the rarest humans alive. The door swung open violently, and a silver-haired man in a white coat rushed in. Dr. Mitchell, his badge red, and he looked at me the way treasure hunters must look at unopened shipwrecks. "Mr. Harrison, I'm Dr. Mitchell, the medical director." "Sarah, you're absolutely certain?" "I ran it 4 times, doctor. It's definitely Rh-null." He pulled a chair directly beside my recliner, close enough that I could smell the coffee on his breath, his eyes burning with an intensity that seemed misplaced in this depressing facility where people sold pieces of themselves to survive. What Dr. Mitchell was about to tell me would connect me to a family I never knew existed, and a dying man across the ocean who desperately needed what only I could provide. But first, I needed to understand how a broke construction worker from the Midwest became the answer to a billionaire's prayers. "Mr. Harrison, has anyone in your family ever mentioned having unusual blood? Any rare medical histories?" Dr. Mitchell leaned forward, his pen poised over his tablet. "My mother passed away when I was 3, I said. "Pneumonia complications. My father never discussed anything about blood types. He's just a retired postal worker living in a small apartment in Wichita." "We need to run a comprehensive panel immediately," Dr. Mitchell said, but then his phone vibrated. When he checked the screen, his face went pale. "That's impossible. How could they know this quickly?" "Know what?" I demanded, but he was already standing, pacing, speaking in rapid medical terminology I couldn't follow. I caught fragments. "Yes," confirmed Rh-null. "He's here now." I understand the time sensitivity. I considered walking out, taking my $60, and disappearing before whatever this was spiraled further out of control. But then I thought about my son, Tyler, struggling through university while his mother poisoned him with stories of his father's failures. I thought about my younger brother Kevin, pretending my presence in his spare room wasn't straining his marriage. I thought about my father, Gregory Harrison, who'd worked his entire life with his hands and was now offering me his retirement savings because his son had lost everything. "Mr. Harrison," Dr. Mitchell said, ending his call, someone is coming to speak with you. Someone who's going to make you an offer that will transform your life. I don't understand any of this, I said, hating how defeated I sounded. This morning, I woke up on my brother's couch with $42 to my name. I came here to sell plasma, so I could afford gas and groceries. Now you're telling me my blood is special. Not just special, Mr. Harrison. Your blood is priceless. Right now, there's a man dying in Geneva who needs what you have. His family is already sending a representative. She'll arrive in 15 minutes. Geneva. I knew it was in Switzerland. Knew it was where wealthy people conducted international business and kept private banks. It was the type of place my ex-wife Jennifer had always fantasized about visiting, back when she believed I could provide that lifestyle. The needle in my arm suddenly felt more significant, as if it was extracting something beyond mere blood. There's something else, Dr. Mitchell said, his tone making me focus intently on his face. When we identified your Rh status, our system automatically performed a genetic analysis. It's standard protocol for rare blood types. Mr. Harrison, we discovered something in your DNA that contradicts your stated family history. What do you mean? I mean that genetically, you display markers consistent with a very specific European lineage, a family that's been extensively documented due to their unique blood characteristics. Before I could demand clarification, the door opened again, and a woman entered wearing a suit that probably cost more than my repossessed truck had been worth. She appeared to be early 40s, with dark hair pulled into a severe bun and eyes that evaluated me like I was a business asset. Mr. Harrison, my name is Elena Castellano. I represent the Moretti family of Geneva. We need to discuss your blood, your family history, and an offer that will sound impossible, but I assure you is entirely legitimate. And that's when my story truly began. Not when I lost my company, or when my wife abandoned me, or when I hit absolute bottom. It began the moment I learned that sometimes what saves you has been flowing through your veins all along, waiting for you to become desperate enough to discover it. 7 months earlier, I'd been Marcus Harrison, owner of Harrison Construction Services, with 16 crews working across 4 states. I had a house with a 3-car garage, a wife who loved hosting elaborate dinner parties, and my son Tyler in his 3rd year at State University. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. The morning everything started collapsing, I was standing at the Riverside Plaza demolition site, coffee in one hand, blueprints in the other. The abandoned Hartley's department store had sat empty for 15 years, a 5-story concrete structure that needed to come down so the city could build their new commercial complex. It was a $23 million project, and my company had won the contract against 4 larger competitors. Marcus, I verified everything 3 times. My site manager, Thomas Brennan, had assured me, waving the permit documentation. Thomas had been with me 9 years, understood demolition like some people understand music. I trusted Thomas completely. That trust would cost me everything I'd built. What I didn't know was that buried beneath that building was a gas line that didn't exist on any city map. And when my charges went off, they would trigger a disaster that would destroy my company, my marriage, and my entire life in less than 4 months. The demolition executed flawlessly until it didn't. The explosives fired in perfect sequence. The building folded inward precisely as engineered, collapsing like a house of cards. But when the dust began settling, we heard the hissing. Then came the unmistakable smell of natural gas. Sharp, chemical, wrong. Everyone back. I screamed, and my crew scattered. The gas main we'd severed wasn't on any city blueprint. It had been installed in 1958 by a company that had dissolved decades ago, feeding a section of the old downtown that had been redeveloped 4 times since. Nobody knew it existed because nobody alive remembered its installation. Thank God nobody died. The fire department evacuated 8 blocks. The gas company performed emergency shutoffs across half the commercial district. The 6 o'clock news featured aerial footage of my catastrophe, the reporter using words like negligence and catastrophic oversight, while my company logo appeared clearly on every hard hat. The lawsuits began within a week. The city demanded $12 million in damages. The gas company wanted $6 million. Every business that lost even an hour of revenue demanded compensation. My insurance company dispatched a team of attorneys who spent 4 days examining our documentation before delivering their verdict in my own conference room. The policy explicitly states that all permits must be independently verified, The lead attorney explained, sliding papers across my table. Your signature appears on documents claiming all underground utilities were mapped and cleared. Since that wasn't accurate, we're denying coverage. But the city provided incorrect information. I protested, my voice rising. Their blueprints were wrong. Then you should have verified independently. It's in your contract, Mr. Harrison. Section 23, paragraph 8. Within 5 months, everything vanished. The company I'd built over 18 years dissolved. The house I'd purchased when Tyler was born went into foreclosure. The equipment, the trucks, all auctioned to pay a fraction of what I owed. My business accounts frozen, my credit obliterated. Jennifer lasted exactly 3 weeks after the foreclosure notice arrived. I need to stay with my sister Rachel for a while. She'd announced one morning, already dressed, her suitcases positioned by the door. Rachel pulled up in her BMW, didn't even enter the house. I need time to think about us, Marcus. Think about us. Jen, I need you now more than ever. This is when married people support each other. She looked at me with an expression I'd never witnessed before, like I was something disgusting she'd stepped in. I didn't marry a failure, Marcus. You're 49 years old and about to be homeless. You can't even afford to take me to dinner anymore. She grabbed her jewelry box, the one I'd bought for our 17th anniversary. You know what you are now? You're just another broke, middle-aged failure who couldn't handle success. 23 years, Jen. We've been married 23 years. And for 22 of them, you were successful. She walked to the door, then turned back. My attorney will send papers. Don't contest it, Marcus. Just let me go with whatever dignity you have remaining. After she left, I sat in our empty house, surrounded by boxes of belongings I couldn't afford to store, and called my brother Kevin. Come stay with me, he said immediately. The spare room isn't much, but it's warm and dry. Kevin operated a small plumbing business, did well enough to support his family, but not well enough that having his failure of an older brother living in his home wasn't a burden. His wife, Amanda, tried to be kind, but I could see the strain in her expression when she'd set an extra plate at dinner. My father, Gregory Harrison, called every few days from Wichita. Son, I've got about $14,000 in savings, he'd offer, his voice rough with emotions he'd never been skilled at expressing. It's yours if you need it. Dad, you're 75 and living on Social Security. I'm not taking your money. You're my boy, Marcus. Let me help. I'll figure it out, Dad. I always have. But I hadn't figured it out. By February, I was down to my last $42, eating instant noodles twice daily, applying for jobs I was either overqualified for or too old to obtain. The foreman position in Cedar Rapids was my final realistic opportunity, but I needed gas money to reach the interview. That's when I noticed the sign outside the Plasma Life Donation Center. New donors, $60 first visit. $60 for something my body produced automatically. It seemed like the perfect metaphor for how far I'd fallen. Mr. Harrison, Elena Castellano said, settling into the chair across from me, her leather briefcase clicking open with expensive precision. Giovanni Moretti is one of the wealthiest men in Europe. His shipping empire employs 40,000 people. He has children, grandchildren, a legacy. He's been searching for a compatible donor for 4 years. You're not just blood to him. You're survival itself. I thought about Tyler trying to complete university. About my father too proud to admit he was worried. About Kevin and Amanda pretending my presence wasn't straining their marriage. $2 million would change everything. But something didn't add up. If he's been searching for 4 years, why the sudden urgency? He had an incident yesterday. Internal hemorrhaging from a condition that's been managed for years. He needs surgery, but without compatible blood for transfusion, the surgery will kill him. We have approximately 12 hours to get you there. What about the DNA test? I asked Dr. Mitchell, remembering Sarah had mentioned running additional tests. He hesitated, glancing at Elena. That can wait. No, she interrupted, surprising me. Tell him. He deserves to know before he decides. Dr. Mitchell pulled up something on his tablet, displaying a complex chart that might as well have been hieroglyphics. When we identified your Rh null status, we ran a comprehensive genetic panel. It's standard protocol. But we discovered something else. Mr. Harrison, did your mother ever mention anything unusual about your birth? My mother died when I was 3. Pneumonia. What? And your father never remarried? No. What does this have to do with my blood? Elena stepped forward. Mr. Harrison, The genetic markers Dr. Mitchell found match a very specific lineage. The Moretti family has been searching for blood relatives for 40 years. Giovanni Moretti had a younger brother, Antonio, who disappeared in 1976. My mouth went dry. We believe Antonio Moretti came to America and changed his name to Gregory Harrison. Mr. Harrison, Elena continued softly, the man you're being asked to save, Giovanni Moretti, is your father's brother. Your uncle. The room started spinning. That's impossible. My father was born in Kansas. His parents were farmers. Your father was born Antonio Moretti in Genoa. He fled Italy after a family dispute over inheritance. He created an entirely new identity. She produced an old photograph, yellowed at the edges. Two young men standing beside a yacht, champagne glasses raised, laughing at something beyond the camera. One was clearly a younger version of the man in the medical files she'd shown me. The other made my heart stop. "Dad," I whispered. It was him. My father, Gregory Harrison, maybe 27 years old, wearing clothes I'd never seen him able to afford, standing next to a yacht larger than Kevin's entire house. Your father walked away from one of Europe's largest shipping fortunes, Elena said gently. Giovanni respected his choice, never attempted forced contact. But now Giovanni is dying, and his children don't share the rare blood type. Only Antonio's line carries it. Call him, Dr. Mitchell suggested gently. Ask him yourself. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone. The same phone I'd been using to apply for minimum wage positions that morning. I dialed the number I'd known my entire life, waiting as it rang once, twice, 3 times. Marcus? Everything okay? Dad, I need to ask you something, and I need the absolute truth. I took a breath. Is your real name Antonio Moretti? The silence lasted so long I thought he'd disconnected. I could hear his breathing, slow and deliberate, the way he breathed when he was lifting something heavy or working through a problem. Then, in a voice I'd never heard before, older and sadder and carrying an accent I'd never noticed, he spoke. How did you find out? Those 4 words changed everything. My father, Gregory Harrison, the man who taught me to use a drill, who'd worked 43 years for the Postal Service, who lived in a modest apartment and clipped coupons, was someone else entirely. And suddenly, I had to decide. Would I fly across the ocean to save a dying uncle I'd never met, or walk away from the truth like my father had done 49 years ago? I'm sitting in a donation center, Dad. They found something in my blood. There's a man in Geneva who needs it. Giovanni Moretti. The name hung in the air between us, carried across phone lines and decades of buried secrets. Giovanni. He finally said, and the name came out broken, like something that had been locked away too long. Giovanni is dying? Yes, Dad. Why didn't you ever tell me? Because I chose to be Gregory Harrison. I chose your mother. Chose America. Chose to build something with my own hands instead of inheriting it. Antonio Moretti died in 1976. Marcus. I killed him the day I boarded that plane to New York. But Giovanni Moretti is your brother. My uncle. And he's dying. He's a good man, my father said. And I could hear 50 years of suppressed emotion in those 4 words. We had our differences, but he's family. The fight was never really about money, you understand. It was about freedom. He wanted me to be someone I couldn't be. They're offering $2 million, Dad. He actually laughed, a sound I rarely heard from him. For the first time, I heard the man he must have been before he became Gregory Harrison. Giovanni always did appreciate grand gestures. When we were young, he once bought every flower shop in Genoa because a girl mentioned she liked lilies. Filled her entire apartment building. Dad, I need to know everything. The whole truth. Come see me after you save my brother. I'll tell you everything then. But Marcus, you go. You take their money. You save Giovanni. And you tell him that Antonio forgave him 50 years ago. Tell him I named my son after an American explorer because I wanted you to be as free as I felt the day I first saw those endless horizons. Dad, go, son. Some things are bigger than our past. I hung up and looked at Elena. I'll go, but I want to understand everything. You will, she said, already on her phone arranging transportation. The car will be here in 7 minutes. Dr. Mitchell carefully removed the needle from my arm, and Sarah bandaged the spot with extraordinary care, like she was handling something precious. You're about to save a life, Mr. Harrison. Maybe more than one. The ride to the executive airport was surreal. Elena sat across from me in the leather interior of a Mercedes, making calls in rapid Italian. I caught my father's real name several times, Antonio, and it sounded like a stranger. The jet was already running when we arrived, a sleek white aircraft with Moretti Industries written in small letters near the tail. "Have you ever flown private, Mr. Harrison?" Elena asked as we boarded. "I've never even flown business class." The interior resembled a luxury hotel suite. Cream leather seats, polished wood tables, a bedroom in the back. A medical team was already on board preparing equipment. Dr. Catherine Wells introduced herself as Giovanni's personal physician. "Your blood is going to allow us to perform surgery that will save his life," she explained as we took off. "Without it, we couldn't risk the procedure. You're literally his only hope." During the flight, Elena showed me more photographs. My father, Antonio, at various ages, always beside Giovanni. At a wedding, on a yacht, at what appeared to be a board meeting. In every photo before 1976, he looked trapped. Then she showed me one final picture, taken the day before Antonio left. It showed my father standing alone on a dock, staring out at the Mediterranean. Even in the old photograph, I could see the yearning in his posture, the need to be somewhere else, someone else. "He left a note," Elena said. "Giovanni kept it all these years." She handed me a yellowed piece of paper, the ink faded but still readable. Written in my father's distinctive handwriting, in English, "Giovanni, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Not because I hate you or our family, but because I love you too much to become someone I'm not. The company, the money, the expectations, they're yours. You were born for it. I was born for something else. I'm going to America to discover what. Maybe I'll fail, but it will be my failure, earned with my own hands. Tell Papa and Mama I'm sorry. Tell them I'll always be their son, just not the one they planned. And tell yourself, brother, that this isn't goodbye. It's just me finally learning to breathe." Antonio. We landed in Geneva as darkness fell. The hospital looked more like a five-star hotel than a medical facility. Giovanni was in a private wing that occupied an entire floor. And when they wheeled me into his room for the first transfusion, I finally met the uncle I never knew existed, a man who held the keys to understanding who I really was. Giovanni Moretti was smaller than I'd expected, fragile looking against the white sheets. But his eyes, they were exactly like my father's. Dark, intelligent, carrying decades of untold stories. "You have your grandmother's eyes," he said in accented English, his voice weak but clear. "Antonio's boy. He wrote me once, you know, when you were born. Said he'd named you Marcus after an American historical figure he'd fallen in love with. Said you were his greatest accomplishment, greater than anything the Moretti fortune could have given him." The transfusion took 5 hours. Giovanni and I talked between his moments of rest, about my father's youth, about the shipping empire their father had built, about the fight that had driven Antonio to become Gregory. "It was never about the money," Giovanni said, echoing my father's words. "It was about choice. I wanted him to choose the family. He wanted to choose himself. We were both right. We were both wrong. Do you regret not reaching out?" "Every day, but I respected his choice. That was the only gift I could give him, his freedom." The surgery happened the next morning. My blood, that rare golden blood that had been flowing through my veins unknown for 49 years, made it possible. Giovanni survived, thrived even. Within 4 days, he was sitting up, color returning to his face, making jokes with his children. My cousins, I had to remind myself. The $2 million appeared in my account as promised. But that wasn't the only gift. Giovanni's daughter, Sophia, was a successful developer expanding into American markets. "We need someone who understands demolition and reconstruction," she said over dinner on my last night in Geneva. "Someone we can trust." "Family. I lost my company. I failed. You lost a battle with bureaucracy. That's not the same as failing. Besides," she smiled. A smile I recognized as the same one my father had. "Morettis are very good at starting over. It's in your blood. Literally." I flew back to America 4 days after the surgery, but I wasn't the same man who'd walked into that donation center desperate for $60. The $2 million in my account was real. I must have checked the banking app 50 times to make sure the numbers didn't disappear. But more than that, I carried with me the knowledge of who I really was, where I came from, and why my father had chosen to bury it all. My first stop was Wichita. Dad was waiting at his apartment, coffee already made, sitting at the same kitchen table where he'd taught me multiplication and helped me with college applications. But now I saw him differently. Not just Gregory Harrison, retired postal worker, but Antonio Moretti, the man who'd walked away from everything to become nothing, then built himself into something real. Giovanni sends his regards, I said, sitting across from him. Is he well? He's going to be fine. The surgery was successful. He wanted me to tell you that you're welcome home anytime. Dad smiled, the kind of sad smile that carries decades of complicated history. I am home, Marcus. I've been home since the day I met your mother at that diner in Omaha. Tell me about her. Tell me everything. For the next 7 hours, my father became Antonio again, telling me stories I'd never heard. How he'd arrived in New York with $30,000 he'd secretly saved and a determination to disappear. How he'd taken postal work because it meant stability and anonymity. How he'd met my mother, Linda, when he was delivering mail to her office building, and she'd asked him why such a handsome man looked so sad. She never knew, he said. I wanted to tell her 100 times, but how do you explain that you're not who you say you are? How do you tell the woman you love that you've been lying since the day you met? Did you ever regret it? Every Christmas when I couldn't give her the things she deserved. Every time you needed something I couldn't afford. But then I'd watch you and Kevin playing in the yard, building forts out of cardboard boxes, and I'd know I'd made the right choice. You grew up free, Marcus. Free to fail, free to succeed, free to be exactly who you are. That's worth more than any inheritance. I called Tyler that evening from my hotel room. What I told him would change his understanding of who we were, where we came from, and what was flowing through his veins too. But first, I had one more call to make, to the woman who'd called me a failure and walked away. I called Jennifer from my rental car the next morning. Marcus, why are you calling? I told you my attorney would handle everything. I'm not calling to reconcile, Jennifer. I'm calling to thank you. Thank me. For leaving. For calling me a failure. For showing me who you really were. Because if you'd stayed, I'd never have walked into that donation center. Never have discovered what was in my blood. Never have learned who I really am. What are you talking about? I'm talking about finding out that sometimes being broken is the only way to discover what you're really made of. Goodbye, Jennifer. Have a good life. I genuinely mean that. I hung up before she could respond. There was something deeply satisfying about having the last word with someone who'd thought they'd already written my ending. Within 6 weeks, I was back in business. Harrison International Construction, a subsidiary of Moretti Development. My first project was a $45 million contract in Denver. I hired back 7 of my old crew members, people who'd stuck by me even when I couldn't pay their final checks. Boss, heard you came into some family money, my foreman Jake said on the first day. Something like that, I said. Turns out I've got relatives in the shipping business. I called Tyler and told him everything. About his grandfather's real identity. About the uncle in Geneva. About the blood that connected us to something bigger than ourselves. Dad, this is insane. Are you saying I'm part Italian? I'm saying you're part of a family that values choice above everything else. Your grandfather chose to be American. I'm choosing to bridge both worlds. You get to choose what that means for you. Does this mean I can study abroad in Italy? I laughed. It means you can do whatever you want, son. Your tuition is paid, and you'll never have to worry about money again. But more importantly, you'll never have to wonder who you are. 7 months later, I stood in my new office, not as grand as my old one, but solid, real, earned with blood in the most literal sense possible. My father, Gregory Harrison, or Antonio Moretti, depending on his mood that day, sat across from me. We were reviewing applications for a new training program I was starting, offering young people from difficult circumstances a chance to learn construction. Giving people second chances, he said approvingly. Someone once told me that failure isn't falling down, it's staying down. And sometimes, Dad, you have to lose everything to discover what you're really worth. $2 million, apparently, he joked. No, I said, thinking about Giovanni, about family I never knew existed, about blood that connected me to something bigger than myself. Turns out I'm worth exactly what everyone is worth, whatever someone else needs to survive. I just happened to be lucky enough to discover what that was. The donation center called last month. Another rare blood patient needs help. This time, I didn't hesitate. Some gifts are in what we build. My name is Marcus Harrison. I'm the son of Antonio Moretti, who chose to become Gregory Harrison. I'm the nephew of Giovanni Moretti, whom I saved with blood he'd been searching for across an ocean. I'm the father of Tyler, who will inherit both the story and the choice of what to do with it. And I learned that sometimes being called a failure is the first step to discovering what winning really means. It just took selling my blood for $60 to find out I was worth millions. Not because of what I'd built or lost, but because of what had been inside me all along. The rarest thing about us isn't what we accomplish or what we earn. It's what we carry without knowing, waiting for the right moment, the right need, the right desperate morning to reveal itself. My father chose to be ordinary and became extraordinary because of it. I was forced to become ordinary and discovered I was extraordinary all along. That's the thing about blood. It doesn't care about your bank account or your failures or what your ex-wife thinks of you. It just flows, carrying gifts you don't know you have until someone needs them to survive. And sometimes that's enough to change everything. If you found this story valuable, if it made you think differently about failure or family or the gifts we carry without knowing, please like this video and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Leave a comment below about a time when your lowest moment led to an unexpected discovery. And subscribe for more stories about ordinary people discovering extraordinary truths hidden in the most unexpected places. Because everyone has something flowing through their veins. Sometimes it's golden blood. Sometimes it's just the strength to keep going. But it's always worth more than you think.